Good morning. How about now, good morning? And now, there we go. Now it's a good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Church of Los Alamos. I'm the Reverend John Cullinan, your minister here. As Unitarian Universalists, we affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of all people and gather together in a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are in this moment, wherever you are on your life's journey, you are welcome to be a part of this community. I want to extend a special welcome this morning to any visitors or first-time guests we have with us here. I would love to meet you after the service as we all gather for coffee and conversation in our fellowship hall. Introduce myself, answer any questions you might have about our community here. And now let us begin today's worship. You who feel your heart is breaking, you who are confused and wondering, you who are angry, in pain, or not wanting to be here, you who are hopeful and energized, come in. Come into this community of your heart where you have been held in love and in comfort, where you have shared your joy and your spirit, where you have asked questions because you felt they needed asking, where you have found friendship and companions, where you have sometimes not agreed and sometimes not felt comforted and sometimes not felt heard. Bring your broken heart and your grief, bring your confusion and your questions, bring your anger and your pain, bring your hope and your energy. For here in this place, we can be together. We can gather in all the conflicting emotions tumbling around in our heads and our hearts. We bring them together here and lay them on the altar of community. For community means that fragile, not perfect human beings can come together in the name of peace and seek to find peace again. Come. Let us worship together on this beautiful morning. Would you all please rise in body or spirit and join in our opening hymn number 322. please remain standing and join in our affirmation. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve life in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony. Thus do we covenant with each and with all. Please be seated. A candle has been lit this morning by someone for their dog, who is spending the weekend at the vet, recovering well from surgery. For all our joys, all our sorrows, whether we share them aloud or hold them quiet and close in our hearts, let us be with one another in a moment of silence. Eternal and beloved, gracious source of all life and all love, we come together this morning grateful for this time out of time, which we have set apart so that we might become more fully present to ourselves, to each other, and to that which we call holy. May our joys be celebrated together, our wounds be healed together, our hearts be opened together. Spirit, teach us to consider how others experience the world, to understand how our reality and their reality are different, and yet they share qualities of the same core desire. Teach us to listen for shared feelings, for places of connection. Teach us to be curious and open to hearing differences. Teach us to love into brokenness, to give space for, to be patient with healing. Let us be strong in our vulnerability, in our not knowing, in exposing our less than perfect, scary bits to those in front of us. Give us courage to face judgment, scorn, and hatred because of the greater good. Let us be disciples of essential goodness, strong in our knowing that in each being there is a divine light of the soul. Give us the strength to keep feeling empathy, even when we are tired and broken. For it is then that you are feeling the empathy through us. All this we pray in the names of those known and unknown, present and absent, remembered and forgotten, in the names of all the helpers of humankind. Amen. Once there were 2 water pots, one a perfect specimen, fully formed and round and smooth. It was a good water pot. It held its water and did its job wonderfully. The other pot a little less so, for it had one small crack in it towards the bottom. And by the time it would reach its destination, it would arrive only half full. Each day, the water bearer went down to the well with the 2 water pots and collected the water. And they would carry the pots home on the ends of a pole across their back, whistling to themselves all the way home as they went. And every day, the cracked pot would let go of half of its water all along the way home. The perfect pot, on the other hand, held everything, and it was proud of its achievements, maybe just a little smug about them. "Look at me," says the pot. "Look what I can do. Look how perfect I am. Look how I bring a full load of water back to the house every day. Look at you. You poor cracked pot. You can't do the job right, can you? Leaking out half your water all the way home every day for the last 2 years. Any day now, the master is going to figure it out. The water bearer will see just how useless a pot you are, and you will be replaced for something much more perfect, like me." For another year, this went on day after day, the walk to and from the well, until finally the cracked water pot could take it no more. It felt smaller and smaller, and it felt it had to speak up. "Hello," the pot spoke up to the water bearer. "Can we talk?" And the bearer stopped along the road and picked up the cracked water pot to hear what it had to say. "I am ashamed of myself," said the cracked pot. "I want to apologize to you." "Well, why would you want to do that?" said the water bearer. "What do you have to be ashamed of?" "Well, I've only been able for these last few years to bring home half of the water that you put into me. I can only bring part of the water back, and I let you down day after day. And because of my flaws, you have to do all this work, and you don't get the full value for your efforts." The water bearer smiled and stopped. "Tell you what," they said. "While we're walking home this time, I want you to pay attention. It's the flowers along the side of the path." And so the cracked pot did all the way home, and it did notice there were flowers, beautiful wildflowers, all along the path back to the house. And when they got home, the water bearer asked, "Did you see it? Did you notice all the flowers out there? And did you also notice they were only on your side of the path?" "Oh," said the pot. "Yeah," said the water bearer. "See, I've known about the crack for a while now. And so I decided to take advantage of it. I've been planting seeds up and down your side of the pathway all these years to take advantage of the water that flows from out of you. And for the last 2 years, I've been able to pick these flowers along my way home while I carry you so that I can have them at my table every day. And without you being just how you are, I would never be able to have this beauty gracing my house." And that is our story this morning. Today I want to talk a little bit about one of the most frightening sentences in the English language. I am not okay. It took me a long time to ever be able to say that out loud. I had to hit the bottom of my emotional mire and realize I had nowhere else to go but up. To be able to sit on my couch one day in the middle of a depressive down and say to my wife, "I am not okay." And I hadn't been okay for a while, but I couldn't make the words happen. I was too busy being strong for everybody. To admit to our fragility, to admit to our brokenness is probably one of the most difficult human tasks. We all have times in our lives when we can acknowledge, at least in our heads, I am not okay right now. And yet the words often don't reach the air and make sound waves and hit the ears of ourselves or another person, because it's hard to take that final step. We all need to say it aloud sometimes. But that perfect pot, the one that resides within us, one of those voices of our personalities that speaks to us, keeps telling us that if we show how broken we are, we will not be loved, we will not be accepted, we will be replaced by someone who's a little more whole than we are. It lies to us constantly. And if we're listening carefully to that voice of the perfect pot, if that is the only voice we are listening to within ourselves, if we listen to that too much after a while, we really start to believe it. We really start to accept that that is the central point of our personal being, whatever this crack may happen to be, whatever is leaking out from within us, whatever is not okay. And so we withdraw a bit. We don some armor so we don't have to show it to the world. And in doing, we risk losing all sorts of connections that we feel to ourselves, the people around us, to life in general. Our theme for the month of March is the path of vulnerability. And that word stirs up a lot of mixed emotions in people. It certainly had me feeling mixed emotions. Just writing the word vulnerability in the top margin of my notes as I started to outline this made me kind of clench, feel a little jangly, feel a little nervous. I had to do some deep breathing so I could write other words besides just that one staring at me, glaring at me the whole time I was writing. What is it about vulnerability that scares us so much? In the context of the theme this month, when our friends at Soul Matters talk about vulnerability, they're talking about the risk we take in revealing our true selves, the depths of ourselves to others. And when you think about it in that context, it sounds kind of good to freely be the fullness of who we are, to show the depths of ourselves. It might even be desirable, something we want to do desperately. But I've been wondering, as I've written this sermon all week, whether or not vulnerable, is the right word for what we're trying to get at here. It's a loaded word. I don't know if it's good enough for what we're talking about, because vulnerability evokes weakness. If a castle is vulnerable, if a suit of armor is vulnerable, it means there's a weak spot in it somewhere that will let danger and damage come through. So if we are feeling vulnerable, if there's a vulnerable point within us, that means there are places within us where people who want to hurt us can hurt us. Why would you ask me to be vulnerable? But does vulnerability really equal weakness? Psychologists have been studying this for several years now, trying to figure out people's attitudes towards that sense of vulnerability, that sense of being able to be deep and raw and emotional and share deeply of ourselves. And in one such study, they described situations in which a person had those emotionally raw moments with somebody else, had those moments of truth with somebody else. And they asked them to imagine that person and think about that situation. And almost to a person, people who thought about others being that open, being that raw, being that truthful and deep about themselves, stirred up a sense of admiration in the person hearing the story. Oh, that's wonderful. I really admire that in other people, that capacity to be raw and true and real, be personally honest. And then at the same time in the study, people were asked to think about themselves in those exact same situations, given those exact same scenarios, but with themselves being the one called on to be raw and honest and real. And a majority of the folks going through that same exercise said to a person, oh, no, 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 no. No, I couldn't do that. I can't show my weakness to other people. What we admire in others, we see as a flaw in ourselves. And why do we do that? Why do we play that trick on ourselves? What is it that the perfect pot within is telling us that makes us do that weird flip? When we think about others in these situations, we hear a story where things turned out well for that person when we're admiring it. The story had a happy ending. They were accepted for who they were. They were not rejected in whatever it was they were revealing about themselves. They were loved by the people who they were raw with. They were admired. Heck, we're admiring these people just hearing the story ourselves right now. It's got a happy end. But in our own selves, with that voice of fear and doubt, that perfect pot mocking us, we engage in some self-doubt, a little bit of fear about what it is that lies at our own depths. And what we love to hear about others receiving, we fear we won't get ourselves. If I reveal the wholeness of myself, if I reveal the truth of who I am, if I reveal how I am feeling broken, how I am not okay right now, I will not be accepted. I will not be loved. I will be deemed unworthy of love. And so to avoid that, we run away from ourselves. We don't spend too much time looking in the mirror of truth to see what is reflected back at us. We put up shields and armor, take on forced personality traits to try to hide even more that sense of the truth we're feeling about ourselves that nobody can know because, oh, everything will go so wrong then. And this is normal. This is perfectly natural. We develop all kinds of defenses throughout our lives. Some of them we develop because they fill a need for us, a need to be loved, a need to be respected, a need to feel affirmed maybe. Something we're not getting from the outside world. We pull up a defense mechanism to fill that need for ourselves, to care for ourselves, where we feel we're not being cared for, to protect ourselves, where we feel like we're being threatened. We develop those personality traits and they linger long after whatever that need is may have passed. We've created that chunk of armor for ourselves. And our flight or fright brains put that up whenever there's even a hint of that need. And some of our defenses we develop from direct experience. We think we might be unloved if we reveal ourselves because perhaps at some point we did tell someone a truth about ourselves and we were rejected, or love was withdrawn. Or still we've recognized in ourselves the capacity to do just that when others have tried to be real and honest with us. That fear of being vulnerable is natural, it's normal. It's something we develop over time. And the people we aspire to be, at least within this congregational setting, this community we aspire to be, can't be fully realized unless we can risk our whole real selves into connections with one another. The community we try to build, this beloved community, almost requires us to run toward ourselves, our true selves, the depths of who we are, to revel in it and reveal it. Because as a community, we are following what I like to call the Great Heart Mission. To understand the wholeness of our connections with one another in the universe. To build something that models, at least imperfect as we may be, this sense of the big love that we are trying to build together. Understand the wholeness of the web and find ways to heal the connections that might be blurred or broken when we find them, when we can. And we are able to do that because we are called to love, the big something love I've been talking about for weeks now, that agape love, that word that almost doesn't even seem big enough to contain that love I'm talking about, the capacity to love with the whole of our hearts, our inner beings, with the whole of our true selves, with the whole very-ness to the extremities of what we are capable of. And we need to be ready to receive that love as well. We need to risk vulnerability with one another to show those depths so they can be loved. So we have a chance to love them in ourselves even. And it's hard. And when it's hard to love, we fall back on the offer of grace to one another. Because we're all carrying the voice of the perfect pot within us, and we're all carrying a cracked pot as well. We are this fascinating combination of whole and broken all at the same time. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. But that crack isn't the wholeness of ourselves. It isn't even the wholeness of the cracked pot itself. We need to be willing to be the water bearer who sees the beauty beyond the brokenness in ourselves, in others. And we need to be able to offer that sense of grace to one another because our community needs it and because we know we're going to need it ourselves from time to time. And the way that we're able to do this, to risk revealing ourselves, to love the broken parts, to love the whole parts, to love into that big heart love, starts with a willingness to trust one another. talked a lot about trust the last few weeks because that, for me, is starting to become the key to building that beloved community, to flip on its head the way we get to trust, because we mistrust so easily. That's often our gut response to everything. Trust is something that has to be earned. And yet, to build the community, even on this small scale, takes a willingness to trust that we will be loved, that we will be cared for, that we will be accepted for the depths and the truth of who we are. And like Grace, we offer that trust because we hope it is being offered to us too. The ability to be vulnerable all starts with our capacity to see our truth, to speak our truth, to recognize the truth in others, and to love it unconditionally. Because sometimes I am not okay. That is one of the most frightening sentences in the English language, but only one of them. Because maybe we are not our brokenness right now. Maybe we are feeling good about the depths of who we are. We've found something, a spark within us that we're able to live out, that we're able to talk about. So sometimes the sentence is open-ended. I am whatever it is you may be, broken, not okay, happy, adjusted, fulfilled, sad. The most frightening sentence is simply this, to say, this is who I am. This is really who I am. We need to know that no matter what the this is, that will be loved, that will be accepted, that will be welcome, no matter what. And given the world as we see it today, how do we pull that off? Some of you might have heard I'm into improvisation. I've been performing for years now with a team who's built a close bond together. And let me tell you, as a model for vulnerability, performing improvisation is a pretty good model, because you step out on stage, you have no idea what you're about to do, you have no idea what the audience is about to recommend to you, and you're gonna do something for a half an hour anyway with it. And the reason we're able to do it, one, is because we've built a relationship of trust and love amongst ourselves over the years. And two, to ritualize it. Every time before we go on stage, we put our arms around each other and we say simply this: I've got your back. You're not going to flounder out there. I will come to your rescue, and I know you'll come to mine. It'll be okay. And that one little thing, that's what we're trying to build here in a beloved community. It's a place where we can honestly say and honestly hear, I've got your back. And we do it here on this small scale so we can scale it up and try to do it in the larger world. That is the thing that makes it possible for us to run back towards ourselves when every voice in us is saying, they will reject you, they will not love you, they will not love you for who you are. What makes that run towards the self possible is to have just one place in your life, just one person in your life who can say, I see you, the wholeness of you, the depth of you. I see it. I accept you. I love you. I've got your back. it be so. Before we return to our everyday lives, it is time to give something of the gifts of this community back to the larger community we are part of. It is time for our offering. During the month of March, all cash and undesignated funds we receive will be given to our friends at the Los Alamos Family Council in support of their work for mental health in the community and for the youth activity centers. You may give through the basket this morning or in the collection box at the back of the sanctuary, or as always through the Givelify app if you so choose. The offering will now be accepted. May what you give bring you joy and into deeper relationship with this community. Important announcements and upcoming events can be found on the back page of your order of service, through our announcements email list, at our Facebook page, and in our monthly newsletter, The Voice. A few things to point out this week before we go. First up, our monthly forum is next Sunday, March 12th. After the service, we will be hearing about the new Seed Library project here in Los Alamos and learn all about that. The following Sunday, the 19th, I will be giving one of my periodic Introduction to Unitarian Universalism classes right after the service, a chance to learn the history of Unitarian Universalism and learn a little bit about our congregation and how to get involved here. Fourth Sunday of the month, March 26th, will be James Carroll's monthly biblical scholarship class after the service in the fellowship hall. And speaking of vulnerability, if you want an opportunity to be able to be real and honest and raw and dig into your true selves, our new Soul Matters sharing circles are a great opportunity to practice that in a space where people have your back. We have a few slots still open into our groups. If you are interested in that, please come talk to me. If there, who's in a circle right now that's here right now? Would you be willing to talk to folks about your experience so far in the brief time that we've done? Excellent, yes. So the folks who raise their hands will talk to you about actually participating in them as well, if that's something you want to learn about. And finally, one more reminder that the Women's Retreat will be coming up on May 6th. Save that date. We will have registration information very soon. And now would you all please rise in body or spirit and join in our closing hymn, number 128. Friends, may life bless us and keep us. May the light of life shine upon us and out from within us and be gracious to us and bring us peace. For this is the day, this is the one wild and precious life we have been given. So let us all find a way to rejoice and be glad in it. Go in peace.